Hi friends, and welcome back for day 11 of my October Eve series. Today I'm trying out the new Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor Pencils for the first time. You can see they're still in the packaging. We're gonna break them open and try them out. I got set 2 because honestly it looked like the best fall combination, and I'm gonna be using it today with the Mums Lovely Layer set from Honeybee Stamps. I absolutely love this set. This was my first time using this set too. I have used Lovely Layers before, but let me tell you, these Mums hit different. So I'm going to be using some Honeybee pattern paper and some Nina Desert Storm cardstock for my card base. And let's jump in. Before we get started, you know the drill. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure notifications are on so we can hang out every Friday and get crafty inspiration, of course, once October Eve is over. So I'm going in with this Nina Desert Storm cardstock, and originally I decided to try these pencils out on the Desert Storm, and I'm sure for somebody this works really well and it looks great, and I know that there's a way to use these, but I'm just going to be upfront with you and tell you it did not work for me. So I included it just so you could see kind of my approach and how it went, and I could tell you that it didn't work out for me. So if you have tips for using these kinds of watercolor pencils, I have never used watercolored pencils at all, so it's definitely user error, I'm sure. But if you have ideas for me on how to use these on kind of that craft paper, please let me know. But I love telling you guys the truth and being honest with you about when things work and when things do not work. And for me, this did not work. I knew right at this very moment that it was not going to work. So I'm going to start over. I'm going to cut all of my pieces from some white heavy stock. It's the Distress watercolor paper instead. And this was amazing. This got me the results that I wanted. So again, I'm not giving up. I will try again with some kind of craft paper. I'm gonna probably go do a YouTube search of my own, find somebody who knows better than me, maybe rewatch the Tim Holtz video on these pencils and get some ideas. But just know that if you try something out and it doesn't turn out the way that you originally thought it would, do not give up. It's not the end of the road. You can try again and start over. It's just paper and it's meant to be fun. So you're not alone in that. I definitely started over, and by the time this card was done, I'm not kidding, I absolutely love it. I've used the Mums layering dies a couple times since then as well, and every single time these turn out gorgeous. So now on my Distress watercolor paper, I'm going in with the purple pencil first, and I really went heavier with that right in the center, and now I'm going in with the red on the edges. I laid down all of my pencil and I'm just picking up some clean water, running that along the edges, and I do end up going in to do a second layer of pencil once it's dry, to kind of get the extra definition I was looking for on the edges. So keep that in mind too. These are definitely something you can layer up. And then as I get higher and higher through the stacks and all of my dies get smaller and smaller, I'm going to start shifting colors, and we're going to go from the purple to the red to the orange and then the yellow the further we get towards the center of the flower. Yeah, I also found that to get a little bit more of a smooth texture, because I'm using the textured bumpy side of my watercolor paper, that once everything was colored, if I sprayed it with a little bit of additional clean water, it really helped to smooth and even out my colors a little bit. They did kind of collect on the edges, and for some of them, if it seemed like a lot, I did kind of tap them off onto a paper towel, but for the most part, I left them because I knew I was going to want that extra definition on the edges. So now these pieces are way smaller. You can see I'm going in with more of that orange pencil on the edges. The center of these isn't really going to stand out yet, and the Lovely Layers dies definitely go together really easily once you see where all of the etched lines are. That's me just kind of tilting them so that the edges and the extra water that's collected kind of goes onto that paper towel. And I did let these dry overnight once I was done coloring them all in, and then I went back and added a little bit, let them dry for another maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I was able to stack and adhere them all the way I wanted. So you can see these inner pieces. This is where all of that yellow and that really bright orange kind of comes into play. And yeah, I definitely want to play with these watercolor pencils a lot more. I just feel like there's got to be 1,000 different ways you can use these. And I definitely like them enough to invest in at least one more of the color sets. I only wanted to get one in case I had to decide that they just weren't for me. So now this is the next day. I let them dry overnight, and you can see I'm going in with whatever color is on the outer part of the petals. I'm taking extra of that color just right along the edges and kind of following any of those etched lines that the dye left and working my way around. And then I'm going to go in with less water on my brush just on those edges to kind of blend and smooth out that color, activate it a little bit. But I really don't want the color to travel. I just want it to define and give extra shape to my petals. And I really love how this looked, especially for a dye like this where we're stacking and I want a little bit of shadow and definition between the layers to really help that effect pop. Usually if I watercolor, I use my Distress inks or even Distress spray stains and kind of just press them or tap them out onto a palette and watercolor that way. So I don't have experience with real watercolors, and especially not watercolor pencils. So, but just seeing all of the amazing makes on Tim Holtz's video when he introduced these, I knew that I really wanted to try them. And I definitely think that, you know, card making and crafting in general is definitely the kind of hobby where you should never stop learning or stop playing. I get if you know that like pencils are not for you or watercolors just not for you, but if you have any kind of curiosity about it, I vote go for it. And I get that maybe financially that's not possible for everyone, but like that's why I only invested in one of the sets to make sure that I didn't hate it before I bought the whole collection. I am, you know, a mom of 2 girls and life happens and stuff comes up and it's just not possible for me to buy, you know, spend $75 plus shipping on a full set of watercolor markers, especially when I still have Copics that I'm trying to collect and, you know, add to my set of those. But there are other options out there, I know, for watercolor pencils or other markers. And I just hope that if possible for you, that you get the chance to kind of play and experiment and have fun when it comes to card making, because this definitely helped kind of shake things up for me, right? Like I've been making all of these October Eve videos back to back, working my butt off, and I do lean more Copic heavy most of the time. So it was nice to kind of change the pace and do something a little bit different. So now I'm stacking up all of my die cuts. And like I said, you can see the next layer that the layer that's gonna go on top, the etched lines are what's going to be showing, and you can line them up pretty easily with the ones underneath that don't have an etched line, like the same areas. You can see I'm kind of like spinning my flowers around first to make sure that I know where they're going to go, and then I'm just using a little bit of liquid adhesive. You can also, I've seen people use foam tape in between to really give it a lot of dimension, but this watercolor paper is such heavy cardstock, like a heavy weight, that I knew I was going to get a lot of dimension and thickness with this as it was. So I did not feel the need to add that extra foam in between. So that last little piece, I was like, that's silly. No, it really does bring the whole thing together. And I just love the way that the colors of this turned out. And since the pencils that I used on the leaves were definitely more in that olivey green tone, I decided to use some of that olivey green kind of army green cardstock. I'm going to adhere that to my pre-folded side folding A2 card base with some tape runner and just press that down. And then I trimmed down that piece of Honeybee Stamps cards pattern paper to, I believe, I'm gonna say 5 by 3 3/4. So I would get a good band of color, a good mat all the way around. And then I grabbed this Hello Sunshine die set from Simon Says Stamp. That's where it's from. And I cut the shadow layer from regular vellum, and I cut the words from a My Favorite Things really beautiful pattern paper that I'll have listed in the description box below for you. So make sure you check down in that description box for all of the details of what I've used today. I'll have it all down there. And then to attach this whole thing to my card, I just ran some liquid glue behind the letters on the vellum side. And to be honest, in a couple places the glue kind of seeped out and you can see it through the vellum, but I really don't care. I don't care. If that matters to you, by all means, take your time, figure it out, use a thinner, more like detail nozzle. I know you can get those really, really teeny tiny, like almost needle point glue tubes. I think Gina K has some, and I've thought about getting them, but I haven't yet. And in the meantime, I'm gonna make it work. So just to finish off my Honeybee stamps with some extra Honeybee love, I grabbed these beautiful gem stickers, and I'm just adding 3 of this kind of tan honey colored. These are from the spring set, but honestly they're good for all year round, and they kind of brought in that tan of my background paper. So I hope you enjoyed this experimenting with me today. I hope you're feeling super excited to try something new. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for being here, and as always, happy crafting.